Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the surprisingly complex teaching strategy hidden inside a specialized reading workbook. We usually think of reading comprehension as this huge task, tackling massive paragraphs or entire novels. But today, we're going micro. We're going to see how towering critical thinking skills are actually built from the ground up, literally word by word.
But before we map out our journey, I want you to ask yourself, how much can you really learn from just one single sentence? Think about it, because the answer actually reveals the fundamental mechanics of how we learn to read, how we comprehend text, and really, how we interact with the world around us. It's not just decoding letters, it's about building an entire mental universe. So, here's our agenda for today. We'll cover 1. The foundational reading strategy. 2. Mastering the single sentence. 3. From facts to inferences. 4. Scaling up to 2 sentences. And finally, 5. The power of visual clues. All right, let's jump right in. Section 1. The foundational reading strategy. We've got to start by looking at the core instructional philosophy that sets the stage for everything else.
Take a look at this beautifully illustrated cover. This is the Florida BSD ELA Access Points Level 3 workbook published by Access Points Publishing. At first glance, with its vibrant orange and that serene swamp landscape, it just looks like your standard educational material, right? But crack it open, and it holds a meticulously sequenced framework that is specifically designed to teach the brain exactly how to process information. Now, what's super interesting here is the explicit set of rules handed to the student before they even read a single word. See the icon of the student speaking next to a star? The workbook doesn't just throw text at the reader and say, good luck. Instead, it sets clear expectations. It actively primes the student's brain for the task ahead. These instructions distill the whole methodology perfectly. Look closely at step 2. Picture the story in your mind. And then step 4, look for words in the story that can help you. These are called context clues. Basically, students are being explicitly told to become active directors of their own mental movies. They're acting as detectives looking for clues. This is active reading in its absolute purest form. Moving on to section 2, mastering the single sentence. Let's see how much data can actually be extracted from the simplest stories imaginable. Here we have story 1, Jenna's painting. And check this out. It consists of exactly one sentence. Jenna carefully painted a picture of her cat sitting on the windowsill. This is paired up with a detailed comic strip-style illustration. Now, this image isn't just there to be cute. It's actually a vital tool to aid that visualization step we were just talking about. It gives the student a totally concrete anchor for the text. Right after that, the curriculum immediately tests basic factual recall. Play along in your head for a second. What did Jenna paint? It seems wildly simple to us, but for a developing reader, pulling that specific noun right out of the sentence is the very first major victory in reading comprehension. The student gets 3 visual options here: a cat, a car, and a tree. This firmly establishes the who and the what of that single sentence. By pairing the words with distinct images, the workbook ensures the student is really connecting that abstract text to concrete reality. This brilliantly illustrates how the next 2 questions extract even more facts. The curriculum asks, where was the cat and how did Jenna paint? It uses clear visual reinforcement for every single option, like showing the cat in the hallway versus on the windowsill. It just goes to show that one single sentence is incredibly dense with data, if you know how to look for it. Okay, section 3, from facts to inferences. Here's the crucial point where the workbook transitions from simple recall into demanding, real inferential reasoning. Notice the stark contrast and the quick escalation here. Question 2 just asks for a location. You can literally point to it right there in the text. But question 4, it asks, why do you think Jenna chose to paint her cat on the windowsill? You guys, the answer isn't in this sentence. It requires the student to synthesize information, form an opinion, and project human motivation onto the character. That's a massive cognitive leap. We see this exact same hidden rigor in story 2, Windy Porch. Here, a single sentence describes a minor chaotic event. The wind knocked over the flower pots that were sitting on the porch. And again, the visual sets the scene perfectly, with the wind blowing and the pots tumbling over. Once again, after kneeling down the basic facts, like what knocked them over, where they were, question 4 completely forces the student to step outside the text. What do you think someone might do after the wind knocked over the flower pots? Using real-world logic, the student has to infer the logical next step. They're basically practicing cause, effect, and human reaction, all based on one single line of data.
All right, Section 4, scaling up to 2 sentences. Once the student masters the single sentence, let's look at how the curriculum organically scales up the difficulty.
The rules of engagement remain exactly the same. Read, visualize, answer, and use those context clues. But the cognitive load is about to increase. A 2-sentence story requires the reader to hold one idea in their working memory while simultaneously processing the second idea, and then somehow bridge the gap between them. The texts now expand into 2-sentence stories, like this one. Aiden built a fort and helped his sister decorate it with string lights. Now the student is tracking multiple subjects, Aiden and his sister, and multiple actions, building and decorating. This absolutely demands that the student hold way more variables in their working memory at the same time. The workbook also broadens the thematic scope, introducing all sorts of diverse scenarios. We move from Maya cleaning up the art room, to Ella baking a birthday cake, Jamal tracking bird names, to Carlos watering a tomato seed. And every single one of these expanded stories ends with that vital, open-ended, why do you think, inferential question. It constantly reinforces that ultimate goal of deep reading comprehension. Which brings us to Section 5, the power of visual clues. Let's talk about the indispensable role of the imagery here, because these illustrations are doing a ton of heavy lifting behind the scenes of this explainer. Just look at Marcus with his camping flashlight, looking a bit surprised in the dark. Or Olivia, smiling softly as she watches butterflies flutter around daisies. Let me be clear, these are not just decorative cartoons slapped on to make the page look pretty. They are highly functional components of the lesson. These images are actively teaching the show-don't-tell methodology. They simulate the exact mental visualization that the instructions demand. They're giving students the precise visual data they need to practice drawing context clues right from their environment. I mean, when a student sees Marcus in the dark, they inherently understand why he brought the flashlight, right? It supports their inferential reasoning without making them rely solely on the text. Ultimately, what you really should take away from this is that this workbook is just a meticulously designed bridge. It completely proves that massive critical thinking skills, the ability to recall facts, synthesize data, and project inferences can be built from just a handful of words. It is an absolute masterclass in scaffolding knowledge. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. If third graders are mastering this kind of hidden rigor, actively hunting for context clues, and constantly asking why after reading a single sentence, or are you still actively looking for the context clues hidden in your own daily reading? Keep your eyes open and always keep questioning what's just outside the frame of the text. Thanks so much for joining me.